Hey guys, it's the Vman from No Budget Productions, and with me today is Richard Roberto. How are we doing, my friend?
Very good.
Good, good, good. And you, my friend, are probably one of the most unique people because most people that I interview or chat with are are fan film people. They're people who've been inside the community. They're people who, they've acted or they've been behind the camera or they've done some CGI work. But you have come into um you're kind of outside looking in. You had approached me, what was it, about maybe 3 months ago, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um and you had asked you touch base, I think you had approached George Kyan to do just a painting of the character, and I think I was also just one of the random people to, hey, you want me to paint you? And I was like, oh, like one of your French girls. Ooh la la. um, and to me, it was one of those opportunities of like, wow, this sounds kind of cool. Maybe you can kind of delve into what the whole thing was like for you, because I've told it. I feel like maybe six different times because we've we've showed six different of your paintings. What was the story on your end now that we have you here?
Yeah, I did reach out to George and I reached out to you, and I was going to keep reaching out until I heard back from someone and you got back to me. And so I'm learning a new style of painting. And I started painting about 10 years ago. And this is actually how I started painting. I started in what's called an alla prima portrait workshop in San Francisco with a woman named Felicia Forte. And that's how I started my sort of formal introduction to painting. Um, and then I got away from that and I started doing a slightly different kind of painting, which is slower, a little more meticulous, a little tighter in terms of its realism. And I loved it and I learned a ton doing it. But because it takes about 40 or 50 hours for me to do a portrait, I can only do so many a year. I had to take up all my vacation time to kind of do those things. Then sort of life happened as it happens, and I stopped painting for about 5 or 6 years. And a couple of years ago, I got back into painting, and I tried to sort of pick up where I left off, and I found it very difficult, again, because of the time factor. So I started transitioning back into like an alla prima style, which is painting in one session. So you have one day, you set things up, you draw, you paint, you're done. And it's hard, and I'm not very good at it, and I'm learning to get better at it. And um, what I wanted to do is to have a little more formal approach to what I would call purposeful practice. And this is something that one of my teachers talked a lot about. You can practice things that won't help you a lot and maybe develop bad habits and never really approach your goal, or you can have a really purposeful practice, where it does help you get there and get you there quicker. So I signed up for this online workshop um, with a woman named Chelsea Lang, and it's called Alla Prima Boot Camp, which is kind of right up my alley as to how I wanted to transition back into painting Alla Prima. And I worked through a bunch of modules, and one of the modules, it's like the second to last module, is to paint a series. And the thrust of this workshop was doing a lot of analysis of other people's work that you admire and your own work to kind of figure yourself out. Like, what do you really want to do? How do you want to get there? What inspires you and stuff like that. And, I paint a lot of dogs, which I love because I love dogs. I paint horses. I love horses. And I paint people. I painted some still lifes. Some of them are actually quite good, I think, from a technical perspective, but I'm not super excited about that stuff. I wish I could paint landscapes because I love landscapes, but it turns out I'm terrible at it, I don't know how Bob Ross banged out like a painting in 25 minutes and it looked like something. I can't do it in days. It still doesn't look like anything. But I studied like human anatomy and I studied a lot about drawing. So I figured what I needed to do was to get better at that quickly, at painting things in one shot. So I thought, I'm going through this workshop about being inspired, and I used to be involved in like zero budget short filmmaking years ago. I did a little bit of animation. It wasn't very good. I did some sound engineering and audio engineering for other animators. Loved it, but it's just a ton of work. And I wound up giving that up. I'm a musician as well. And I thought, at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of us, myself included, were like shell-shocked by it, and didn't know what to do. And everyone's looking for things to stream. I've always loved science fiction. I've always loved Star Trek. I'm a TOS guy from when I was a kid, And I started watching fan fiction. And the first ones I found were, I had seen them before, actually. It was the Cawley ones, right, which were made on a set. I think he built in upstate New York. They did a couple of them that were brilliantly done, well written. Some of them were actually written by like DC Fontana and stuff like this, right? And I thought, this is crazy. Who's doing this? Then I found so many other Star Trek fan fiction films that weren't at that quality of production. And my first instinct was, well, I'm not sure I want to watch this. But I did anyway. And I was stunned by the writing, by the acting, and sometimes the audio is not very good, and the CGI isn't very good. But the passion was really what I connected with. And the ideas, some of the ideas were brilliant. I think George has a movie where he explains Klingons with the forehead ridges and without the forehead ridges in a way that's way better than Kanan, right? There's another, I forget what I think it's the Farragut has, the origins of the alternate universe, which is, clever, So I found that I was really drawn to, just like in music, I'm a musician, I'm drawn to people making music in their basement and releasing it on the internet so I can hear it without auto-tune and a professional audio engineer. The rawness of that, the sort of, it's almost like a kind of honesty, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how I felt about these fan fiction films. And I ran into a bunch of your films, and dude, you are a hell of a writer. I'm sure people have told you this, and the intensity around your performances, I was really taken by. And I just became a huge fan. So, I wanted to find some way, and I know you guys are doing this as a passion project. You're not making money on it. You can't monetize it, right?
No.
I wanted to find a way to sort of say thank you and give back. And I wanted to have a series of paintings for my workshop, and I wanted them to be portraits, which is a challenge, right? And I was nervous about it, like you say, because people are going to see this. I could, go back to watching things on YouTube and pretend I'm an artist, or I could paint and show the world. And I was very nervous about doing that. But meeting you changed everything. We had a conversation. I don't know if we FaceTimed or if we Facebook messaged or whatever it was. And I immediately knew this was the right move. And you have helped me get in touch with all these right people who had the same kind of attitude that you have around understanding what I wanted to do and being supportive of it. My goal in this alla prima painting approach is just to wind up with a likeness. It's not going to be a photographic representation because I'm working too quickly for that. I'm not that good at that, but I wanted to make sure it looked like who I was painting. And I wanted to do the best job I can at drawing and the best job I could with the colors, given the time constraints, and just learn how to do that better. And when I'm doing that on my own with like reference photos I download from the internet, I don't have to show anybody. I can wipe it off. There's no pressure. And sometimes my attitude around it was, wow, this isn't going so well. I won't try very hard. I'll just wipe it off. But when I'm doing it for someone, like I've done commission portraits for other people, where you can't just wipe it off because they're expecting a result, So you have to find ways to fix your problems. You have to find ways to avoid pitfalls, right? So this was kind of a little bit of a pressure cooker, so that I can move forward. And I've loved every minute of it. I've loved seeing the reveals. I get to meet some of the people who I painted through your StreamYard connection. So it's been great for me.
Well, I have to say the the thing you and I were talking before the show. You choose to be an artist. You choose to be a musician. And you there's that sense of putting yourself out there. You can play it safe and and take a desk job, and there's usually when you do that, you kind of have that resentment of, man, life has really screwed me over, and you never, you have that mentality of, I never had the chance. But when you are an artist or a musician or something to that effect, when you actually have that sense of your soul in the product of what you're doing, even if you're not the best, the Picasso type mentality, I mean, none of us are, but you are putting yourself out there. You're opening yourself up to ridicule. There are always going to be those people that are like, this sucks. It's not, the best. But I love the fact that you did this, because I mean it is, like I've said, like I said 6 times before, nobody has painted fan film people. People paint William Shatner, people paint Patrick Stewart, and it's not knocking those people or what they've accomplished. Obviously not. We're all fans. However, that being said, what you have done for us has immortalized us in that. Yes, we're immortalized because we're on the internet. But then again, it's also immortalized every dick pic that's been, flashed out there to some unwanted, that's also immortalized out there. But, what you have done out of the kindness of your heart has taken that, you've opened yourself up to the good and the bad and said, hey, this is my interpretation of the Menard or the Grissom or the Nagura or the Rousseau or the Lobato or the the other I forget right offhand, Ramses.
Ramses, yeah.
This is my interpretation. I hope you enjoy it. And every one of us was speechless. And to me, it's a reflection of our mentality. When I first started fan films, it very much was very cutthroat. People had the mentality of, my fan film's going to be the best. No, my fan film's going to be the best. No, it's mine. No, mine. It kind of was that mirror universe mentality of just jockeying for position with the knives. And what we've evolved to now is, hey, let's help each other out. And you coming to us saying, hey, can I paint you? I'd love this. Let me give back. I love that. It's so fucking awesome to see those paintings. And from someone who, we didn't entice, it was just, hey, this is what you guys meant to me. And that's so fucking awesome. So you've been painting. How long have you been painting for? Because your work's been remarkable.
Well, so I started painting about 10 years ago, and I painted for a couple of years. I did a bunch of workshops. Hello. And I started doing some paintings on my own outside of workshops, and let's say I went for about 2 to 3 years doing that. But again, it was taking really all my vacation time, and I wasn't really painting in between. I wasn't doing a lot of drawing. And then, life got complicated, as it sometimes does, and I didn't paint for like 5 or 6 years. And I kind of was in a situation where I was able to get back into it. I have a good friend who passed away, who we used to talk with about this, and I would say, well, I just can't find the time, And he said, we don't find time, we make time.
Yeah.
And it was such a big deal for me to realize I need to make some time. So I started finally doing that. And getting the space I need and getting back into painting. So all in all, I think if you added the time up, 4 or 5 years I've been painting, with a little break in between that 10-year span. So
I think that needs to go up on a T-shirt. That needs to be it's a wise quote.
Yeah.
I've drawn with charcoal. Which is, it's not easy,
Right.
Drawing in regular pencil is easier because you can kind of erase it and then go over with ink pen. But when you draw with charcoal, if you fuck up, oh man, it's there. Because then you got to go over with white charcoal and kind of try to fade it. But I mean, if you mess up, it's there, and much like with your painting, like you go over and you're like, okay, I fibbed here, I got to go here and I got to edit and get this. And, it's like, if there's a flaw, it's there forever,
Right.
So you have to know on several levels what you're doing and how to course correct if you've flubbed. But I've never I fell out of passion with it a long time ago, and then found a new passion with fan films. And then never went back. But I love the fact that you left, but then came back. Found that time. I love it because certainly seeing the work from these pictures, it's awesome. That is awesome. So Daniel Vance says in the chat, he says, painting is self-discovery. Every good artist paints what he is. And it's a quote from Jackson Pollock. And you're absolutely right. For me, I love, I did several Star Trek drawings. I did a drawing of House. I did one of Rorschach. I loved kind of tortured characters, characters that internalize a lot of things, which I think is reflective of the fan films that I do. What is your favorite thing to draw? If you had one last painting that you're like, okay, this is it, and then I'm walking away, what would you paint?
I don't think I'd have the courage, but I would paint my wife. And the reason I won't have the courage, my wife is my best and worst critic. And I'm sure if I ever painted her, she would be very critical of it. So I would want to paint my wife, but I would need to muster the courage to do so, because I'm sure it wouldn't be. That would be a thing.
Right. I think every husband looks at their wife and goes, "Worst critic," and then, "Oh, but love you." I think many husbands are, silently acknowledging what you're saying. You just took the biggest courage step right there, my friend.
Well, she's also a great critic. What she'll do is I'll show her something and she'll go, "Is that finished?" And I immediately know my answer should probably be no, because she clearly sees something. And occasionally she'll point something out. I think you should change this. And I'll go, you know what? She's right, and I'll go back. And because it's wet paint, I work wet into wet, I can go back and make some tweaks. But there's also something about being finished, like knowing I'm never going to make it perfect.
Right.
And it needs to be done when there's no longer something there that will keep me up at night. If there's something on a painting where it really just bothers me, I can't live with it, I need to fix that. But if I think I've got a likeness down, and despite all the imperfections, because there are many, and I'm always going to look at my own work and be critical of it, is there anything there I couldn't live with? And if I could say no to that, then I know I can leave it alone. And sometimes fixing one thing might mean having to fix a lot of other things, because I paint kind of loose, so to fix something, I might wind up tightening it up, and now it's going to look like the only spot that's polished on the whole painting. So I got to polish the whole thing now, which takes a lot more time. So, but I kind of feel like her feedback has been largely beneficial, despite the fact that sometimes it's hard to hear. Like I want her to say, "Oh, great job," but she almost never says great. But
it pushes you to be better.
Yeah, exactly. And it's honest, and it's honest and respectful. It's not like honest and mean, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it doesn't come from a place of malice.
Right.
So one thing I've found, and this comes from, because I play the bass guitar, and as I said, I've drawn great minds think alike, man. Oh man, that's awesome. When I'm, and this comes from being a musician, not a very good one, but a musician, and a writer or actor, who has sets here in his house, or an artist. I'll be laying in bed and I'll be like, all right, I need to go to sleep. And then I'll be just about to sleep, and all of a sudden something will pop in my head, and I'm like, okay, I can't lay here. I've got to go. I got to either go write this, or I've got to go draw this, or I've got to go act. I've got to get this out of my head, because I can't lay here. I'm now just until this is out. Are you the same way? Do you have those nights where you're like, I can't be here. I got to go. Do you have those nights too?
When things are going well, I do. Yeah. So when I am really connected to work I'm doing, and this has happened with some of those, where I think maybe even your portrait was one of those, where I kind of finish and I take a little photo of it to bring it back with me, and I come back for dinner. And then my wife and I walk our dogs every night together. So I walk the dogs, and I'm going, I got to go back. It's like 10 o'clock at night, but I can't because the next day's work. I got to go to work the next day, so I can't do Mondays, right? So I told my wife I got to go back. So, okay. Went back to the studio, and whatever the thing was, I worked on the thing, and I forget what it was exactly. But when that happens, I feel a really strong connection to what I'm doing. That's a good day for me.
Yeah.
Even though it's
Yeah.
a little bit of an obsession, I feel like not having that is not as satisfying. Like I'd rather have that itch it's not quite scratched and know I got to do more, and just have that sense of connecting to wherever the work is, than not caring as much about it. So I think when things are going well, I do have that kind of connection. Yeah.
I was about to say you kind of struck a chord with, like, I'm a very visual person, so in my mind I'm sitting there. You have a picture you have a picture of me in your pocket, and then you said earlier about us FaceTiming, and then you're like, it's 10 o'clock at night. I had this vision of that Jake from State Farm commercial where don't throw me in the fire with your wife, man. That's no, that's awesome. See, I think everyone, because I've said for a while now, I've had scripts that have been sitting here on my desk, and very brief cameos that I haven't gotten to since I think September, October, that have just been sitting there, and I've had no passion to film them. And then this past week, was it this past? Yeah, this past week I took Monday and Tuesday off, and because I had been missing my son, and I was like, fuck it, it's COVID time. We haven't, I have nowhere to go for vacation, and I've got all these days just stockpiled. Like Picard said in Insurrection, I have 300 some odd days of vacation time saved up. And that's how I feel, because I don't go anywhere. I'm never late to work, so I've got vacation days galore added up, plus my regular vacation days. I'm just sitting on them. So I was like, I'm gonna take my Saturday, Sunday off like normal, and I'm going to take Monday, Tuesday off. So I'm going to get a 4-day vacation, spend time with my kid, just fucking kick back and play video games, play cars, play He-Man, whatever he wants to do, just fucking be me. And I tell you, I filmed, like I had that urge. And then when I was done with that, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to write some more. And I started doing that. And I tell you, that passion came back. And I love the fact to see someone else passionate about what they're doing. It's a great thing to see someone passionate, because there's so much negativity out there today. This side versus this side, this person versus this person. They just constantly butting heads, toxicity on the internet. But when you see someone that's just like, screw the world, I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to paint the world how I see it, or regardless of what that canvas is, regardless whether it's videotape, or if it's a paintbrush, or if it's audio. To show the world how you see it, that can be a very inspirational thing, because then you inspire other people to do their thing.
Exactly the case, and that's one of the reasons why I like the fan fiction films, because it has that effect on me. Because, like you say, we can get caught up in the woes of the world or the woes of our home. Everyone has challenges we have to deal with, and when I'm in a mindset where I'm just focused on worrying, and someone told me that worry was a kind of fear. When I learned that, I liked worrying a lot less. I thought worrying was somehow this thing I was supposed to do. But being afraid isn't something I think has a lot of value. So caring matters. Worrying, I think, there's some grayness there. But when I'm caught up in that kind of worry, I'm not able to be focused on work and be creative and get that connection where I get obsessed about details. Like, that doesn't happen for me. And I think fear is the reason why. And I didn't connect worry with fear, Fear is this thing that has kept me from all kinds of things, and getting past the fear. I don't think I get past the fear by not having it. I get past the fear by not letting it define what I do, But that's the thing. If you can get into that and say, you know what, I can't control the world. I'm not going to make the world safe for my kids the way I want to, because I don't have that kind of power. I can't make the world safe from the pandemic and all kinds of similar things. You kind of realize that you can only do what you can do, and one of the things I can do for me and maybe for others is paint or make music or something, So.
Well, and that's the thing. Like take what you've done, for instance. You painting something. I forget. I think it was Mike Warnke, a Christian comedian. I'm an avid atheist. But I grew up for you know, a good part of my childhood. And then for about 5 years, I studied to be a Baptist preacher. Um, but I was very much immersed in that world. One of the things that he said was, you know, if you focus on the positives, you don't have time to worry about the negatives. You know, and changing, you know, worrying about the negatives, you know, or you know, worrying about the positives, you know, seeing an injustice can make you do a positive thing. You know,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things, like you doing, you know, looking at the world going, man, this shit's crazy out there. It's fucking nuts. And then you're saying, you know what, I'm gonna do this one positive thing because it impacts me. And I'm not gonna worry about that negative shit, the toxicity on the internet and the fucking trolls and whatnot. And you doing the painting. And then us doing this right here, you know, just talking about painting. That might inspire someone that you don't even know, who might
Right.
just be a casual viewer who just happens to, you know what, I'm gonna click on this, see what this is about.
Right.
And that might inspire them and touch their lives in ways that you and I both don't even understand. And then they might go and inspire somebody else that might inspire somebody else, that they might be the person that triggers that fucking thing. And it's a whole butterfly effect
Right.
that we don't even fucking know, just because you were not focused on Johnny B. Troll over there that's trying to destroy every fucking thing because he's so fucking sour-mouthed that he don't know what's going on. And so it's one of those things where if we just did us and understood our place, you know, that right there, it is the wonderful thing about our own bubble. And I'm not saying you got to live life in a bubble, but understand it takes nothing more than just a pinprick
Yeah.
to pop our bubble. And so just avoid those pricks.
Poetic. So you mentioned your son, and I wanted to talk. I know we have a couple of things we wanted to talk about,
Sure.
but I definitely wanted. I don't know how much time you have, but I wanted to talk a little bit about a project that you know I have spoken briefly about before, and I wanted to,
Sure.
and we wanted to finish up the captains first, which we've now done. I know some people reached out and there's more captains. Maybe we'll get a chance to do,
Yeah.
which would be great. But we talked about painting you and Royce, and
Yeah.
the photo you sent me is actually very typical of photos people will send me and say, hey, can you paint this? It's a super cute photo of you with Royce. I think you're on one of the sets,
Yeah.
and it's great, and it's really well lit. And as you and I have talked before, that's hard for me to paint, you know?
Right. It's
because
easier.
it requires more subtlety, and I think it
Right.
requires more skill. And I don't feel confident I could do it. But you know, I painted Gary, and Gary's photo was all evenly lit, and I was really nervous about that. But I also knew the connection I had with you. I felt safer doing it, you know. And I did the portrait of Gary, and I learned from that. So we talked about we're going to go ahead and do that portrait. I'm not going to do it alla prima. Actually, I'm going to do it sort of a hybrid of my old style of working, which is going to be a little more deliberate. It's going to take a few days because I want to do a good job for Royce. You know, painting kids is harder than
Yeah.
adults. So I want to do that. But then I asked you for a favor to take a similar photo with a little bit different lighting, like single point lighting or mostly single point lighting, but have your wife take the photo while she's talking to you, so you're not posed. So that she'll take many photos while she's having a conversation, show me the photos, and I'll pick the one that captures something about you that's revealing. And that's what I really want to paint. When I paint anybody, I don't want to paint a pretty pose. I mean,
Right.
sometimes it's really great, like the poses we got for some of these captains, even though I think some of them weren't specific for this, like Frank's was awesome, you know. I mean, there were a number of them. I mean, Gary's had this great smirk, and you know, we had this great smile from Paul. I mean, a lot of them had just great things about them. But the unguarded, unposed photograph is more revealing in ways that you're unaware of, and that's what I want
Right.
to get to, you know. So
Well,
I want to do two of these paintings.
well, it's one of those things where, like I always tell people, you know, use, you know, send every bit of footage you can when you send, because a lot of people don't realize in the films that I do. I mean, I think they realize now that we have the pandemic that, you know, I do reach out to people from all across the world. If I'm in a cosplay group, first off, before we continue, Dionysus Larson says, "Very nice, a live greeting." Yeah, absolutely. We try to do these every Monday. I stopped in November, December, and January because I needed. Actually, I think we stopped in at the end of December. I think I just skipped all of January because we did 68 Pizza Roll Diaries last year, which was a fucking lot. So I needed a break and detox. But we're gonna try to do Pizza Roll Diaries most every Monday this year. Dionysus Larson says, "Greetings from Greece." Well, hello.
Hey,
Greetings.
greetings.
So we're going to do Pizza Roll Diaries every Monday, just because it's nice to chit chat and get to know people live, especially with the way the pandemic's going. We need human contact and, to get to know different people, from their facet of life. So greetings. Stop by every Monday at 1 p.m. Central, around the same time. And you should see something live, unless, real life comes first and something happens, such is life. So, but, like I tell everybody, when they send me their footage, send me every little bit, because a lot of times when people are talking, I hate just back and forth conversation. A lot of times when, like, say I'm talking, the camera may go to you and we're getting a reaction shot. Well, a lot of times those reaction shots will be just the actor between takes. It's not just reaction stuff, because that's, intentionally shot, and I don't like that. I like getting the stuff where they're actually, okay, where's my line? What is this? Okay, I don't know. Where's the camera setting up? And they're looking at. I like the natural look, and that's what you're talking.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially now that we're in the pandemic, and I really don't do a lot of up close in person stuff. I mean, I do with people I work with because we're tested for the COVID. We are safe, so I feel safe working with those people. But I don't travel to go do filming because it's not as safe for me to travel. So I do reach out to people and say, hey, you have a Star Trek costume because we're in the same cosplay group. Would you like to be in a fan film? I'll make a character for you. You can be in this shot, and you can be on my Combox. So that's why a lot of my films now, and have been for quite a while, Combox films. When the pandemic took over, it was business as usual for me. I could just keep boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
it's like, it's my fat ass sitting in my den, shit that I've always done, But that's the same thing you're talking about, is seeing people in their natural way.
Yeah.
You pick up those little things, stuff that you can't. It's not rehearsed,
Right. Exactly.
So that's what you're talking about is the natural. But no, I really the picture of like me and Royce that you and I have talked about. I don't think I've forgotten. I haven't. No, I'm very excited to have that because, to have a picture of, someone and their child painted again. That's one of those things where it's like not many people get something like that. And when you and I talked about it, and you said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that," I was like, "Yes," because again, that's something that when I finally do pass, Royce will look at that and say, "That's me and my dad."
Yeah.
And that's just like with him being on film, in so many of my films, he'll be able to look at himself growing up through the years and see that, so you're helping to keep the Star Trek love in my kid. Cause just like when he comes in here, he's like, "Dad, can we go in the spaceship room?" "Sure. Come on, son, let's go."
That's awesome that you have a spaceship room.
Well, he helped. The thing that I love most about this isn't the fact that, it's cool to be able to go shoot when I need to shoot something here, and redress it when I need to, that's fun. But the thing I love most about this is the fact that him and I did this together. Some of the spilled paint on the carpet over there is stuff that he dribbled, or he'd be just hitting the wall with the thing and paint's flying, and I'm like, "Good job, son." It's
awesome.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, But no, having a painting of, your kid and you, not many people get that, So again, you're helping to build those future memories. That's fucking awesome. So Dionysus Larson says, "Learning how to draw is what's helping me now while I'm recovering from my hernia surgeries." Oh, that's awesome. speedy recovery. Hope everything works out for you, my friend.
Yeah.
So you've been a Star Trek fan for, first off, several questions. How long have you been a Star Trek fan? Two, what's your favorite series?
So I've been a Star Trek fan ever since I can remember, watching it on reruns with my mother when I was a young child. So that's how long I've been watching Star Trek, in the early 70s. So that's how long I've watched the show. I think the original series is still my favorite for lots of reasons. Some of it is nostalgia. Some of it is I think the writing was very smart. I think that it was still an era of television where they didn't yet have, actuaries creating plot formulas and giving them the studios to farm out to writers to produce, cookie cutter kind of TV. And I think that Star Trek has suffered from some of it over the years, not because they wanted to, I'm sure, just because that's how television studios work. But I also kind of feel like some of my favorite episodes, I was not a huge DS9 fan because I didn't think it was really Star Trek. I thought it was like they got scared about Babylon 5 and threw together a competitor really quickly. I was really unhappy with, as I have been with a lot of science fiction, but in particular Star Trek, every character or every alien race has to have some sort of really, what's the word I'm looking for? A kind of religious backstory that is dogmatic and rigid and reflecting some aspect of the human condition that I think is exaggerated even for humans, So I kind of felt that was the thing. But DS9 had some of my favorite episodes ever. First of all, the episode where they went back to the Tribbles. You remember the episode where they went back in time?
Trials and Tribulations. Yeah, great episode.
That was an amazing episode. They had this great episode where I think, again, it may have been time travel where they went back in time and there was a kind of like a slum. I forget what they may have called it in the series. And there were hostages and it was like this event in time. Brilliantly done. The episode where Cisco dies in an accident and his son spends the rest of his life trying to save him.
The Visitor. Yep.
Oh, that was a brilliant episode. There was another episode, and I don't remember the context, but it was in black and white, and it was a 1950s USA, and Cisco was a writer, and they dealt very specific with racism, and no one had makeup on, so Rene Auberjonois didn't have to have his fake face on and stuff like this. That was a brilliant episode. So they had some really outstanding episodes in that show. But I also feel like, the advent of like HBO and, to some extent other, streaming platforms, cable platforms, changed television. It took off those shackles that I think TV producers had on, you can't make it too adult because we want kids to still watch. And they started writing smarter TV. And when I think Discovery tried that, I think they had a couple of missteps along the way, but I think they're finding their stride. But Picard has one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek ever. It's between Nepenthe and Sitting on the Edge of Forever are my two favorite episodes. I thought Nepenthe was, it dealt with the loss of a child, which is horrifically painful, but they did it in a way that wasn't at all schlocky. It was smart. It was mature. I just loved it. I thought that Troy and Riker, those characters were perfect. The actors were beautiful. I thought that the kid who I thought, oh, there's going to be a kid. This is how they're going to make it into a kid. The kid was, I don't know who the child actor was, but she was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. So I think there's more great Star Trek coming, and I'm excited. I do think my favorite show overall is still TOS, but I even liked Enterprise, where I mock the song every time it comes on. But Enterprise had some great episodes. DePaul was a great character, aside from the fact that she's a supermodel or whatever she was before she was an actor. She did some great work, and they did, I think, the best writing for her character and for Phlox. So I think there's a lot of great television in Star Trek, and even the Star Trek that I don't think is very good, it's better than almost all the other things on television, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Enterprise, I would say season 3 of Enterprise is probably some of the best Star Trek that, because you talk about the tension that is in that show. It rivals the tension that's in Babylon 5, or not Babylon, Battlestar Galactica, the remake. And you and I were talking about Battlestar Galactica, the remake, because DS9 is my favorite Star Trek, but Babylon 5 is my favorite, or not Babylon, gosh darn it. Battlestar Galactica, the remake, is my favorite sci-fi, just because the writing is top notch, because it really delves into the grittiness of human nature. The characters just go through hell and back. But it's the human element. But I think every Star Trek series, again, before the show we were talking, and I've said many times, like Voyager is, I have my issues with that series. I do not like that show. However, as I've said, what they get right, they really do good. When they get it right, they really just hit that nail right on the head. And they tell some really good stories, and make you question, like, oh man, are we really doing good here? Like with the EMH rights issues, that was really like, are we really treating these people right? I mean, they're slaves. What are we doing here? And that, I mean, it's something where it's like, normally you wouldn't think anything of it, but when you look at it through the eyes of the Doctor, wait a second here. And they got some really great story progression with, again, the Doctor. Of course, 7 of 9's story arc is very good. I think Tuvok is a great character. Harry Kim, bless his ensign heart. I think the relationship between Torres and Tom is really great.
I think that turned out to be a great move, and I wasn't for it when it first started, but I became a fan after it evolved. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. The thing is, like, to me, I feel like Voyager was just missed potential. I felt like if they had treated that series, if that show was on now, I think they would have treated it more like DS9, where, okay, we are more of a serialized. Because again, the elements that were serialized worked very, very well, and the throwbacks, like the one show where the show starts off and I think it's Tom and B'Elanna get married, and then the crew starts dying, and then by the middle of the episode they realize that they're the metal people or whatever they are, and then by the end of the episode, like, they start warping back to that one planet where like they can only breathe on that planet, and then by the end of the episode, like, the ship falls apart and everyone dies, and then at the very end of it, like, the real Voyager flies by, and they're like, man, there was a ship here, but we don't know what it was. And the whole episode you spent with a fake Voyager crew that were replicants. Yeah. And your heart goes out to, and to me, it's like, again, I was not a massive fan of the show, but like stuff like that, it's like, oh, you broke my heart.
So I kind of feel like I have friends who love Voyager, and I kind of feel like you do. I feel like it started out wanting to be bold, and then very quickly decided it didn't want to be bold.
Play it safe. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I think DS9 got right, was like, it started off very safe. I mean, right. You had the
and then they progressed to getting bold. Yeah, exactly.
Playing hopscotch and Halloran, and like, what the hell is this shit? Oh my god, But then, I mean, once you get to about maybe mid-season 2, and you have Garrick, and you have the Mirror Universe, and you have, I mean,
Garrick
it just turned
great.
Crazy shit going on. You're like, what? Because the studio didn't care. They were like, do what you want. Don't do this. And Ira Stephen Bear was like, yeah, no, we're gonna fucking do that. Eat a dick. We're doing it. And I mean, it was great. And that's why I say, Battlestar Galactica, that was DS9 with the gloves off. That was, no studio. It was
yeah. And that's the thing. The gloves off part, I think, makes a big difference for the writers and for the actors.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's always when you have, science fiction, because they can tell the stories that we're dealing with now. They can tell what we're feeling but in that futuristic, without the soapbox, without the preaching.
Yes. So they take us
they,
out of our context. So
yes,
whatever our biases are about the world we live in, we get removed from that world, right? So we can
yep,
deal with the human condition in a way that's really unique. That's why I love science fiction. Yeah.
yeah. Well, classic sci or classic Star Trek did it, and
Yeah.
that's why everybody loved it. Because the studio they were too oblivious. They were looking at the dollars instead of the stories. And the
Yeah.
stories were like, no, let's tell this. Let's do the Twilight Zone did the same thing. I love classic Twilight Zone because they were so fucking clever. Outer Limits
Yeah.
sort of did that, but Twilight Zone was very smart. I mean, oh my God, Rob Serling was such a genius on what he did. I mean, so
Yeah.
much. I mean, look at Black Mirror. They do the same. I mean, they're a little bit more on the nose, but it's still great storytelling. I mean, it's science fiction is that ability to tell modern stories in a different element and make you think. And on it's able to give you hope and take it away at the same time. And and I love it, man. I love it. And again, like it's one of those things where if you don't like it, you don't have to. But oh man, it brings people together in such a way, and that's why we have these conventions where you can dress up as your favorite thing. And the thing I love about it, when you go to these conventions, even if your costume sucks, you still have people that are like, dude, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Right.
And and what's funny, I found, because I went to Vegas this last year. Like, I've seen those costumes where it's like, oh, that's horrendous. But it's like, you want to encourage that more. You're like, dude, that's fucking awesome. Keep going with it. Keep doing it. Because it's like,
I mean, they showed up, right?
yeah,
There's something about just showing up. It takes
yes,
something just to show up, right? So,
yes,
yeah.
yes, and that you encourage them, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like that. Because it's kind of like that little kid on the playground where he's trying to kick that soccer ball, and you're like, go Johnny, go, and it's like, it's like, I don't know if you remember. Did you ever buy the Ninja Turtles videotape, the VHS tape back in the day?
My kids may have watched it, but that was a little past my
Okay.
yeah.
Because they had this commercial, and it was a Pizza Hut commercial, and it was had this little song, way off in the outfield, the game drag is on, and this little kid, he's like playing baseball or whatever, but he's just not paying attention to shit. I mean, he's just oblivious. I may send you the link and be like, dude, watch this commercial, but
Okay.
he's just oblivious to everything. And like the crowd is like, they're screaming at the kid, and the kid's like, what the fuck are they? And he kind of takes his hat off. He's like, what the fuck are they looking at? And then he like looks up, and he's like, oh, because the ball's coming right toward him. And he's just like, he lifts his glove up, and he's like, oh, no, don't come to me. And he catches the ball. He's like, and like everyone's like, ah, and that's like what these, for the people that don't do the costumes right, you're just like, yeah, catch the ball,
Yeah.
But that's what science fiction does. Like, it brings everybody together on, that's a really cool costume. That's a really cool makeup job. That's really, like, and it makes everybody feel included,
Yeah.
And again, that's like that. I mean, I got goosebumps now just talking about, dumb shit, it's that fun nostalgia, that gives you that hope. Oh, Donna Parker says that is a song called Left Field. God bless you, Donna. See, now I'm gonna have to post that. I'm gonna go find that commercial, because I all I know is that I remember it's an old Pizza Hut commercial, and I fucking love that commercial, because that's the only thing that I wouldn't fast forward through on the old videotapes, because I love that everybody who had that videotape watched that, because they're like, yeah, baseball. But anyway, so that being said, let's look at some of these paintings you did, because we still haven't. So here is the one of Menard. So that being that big galoot right there. So what? Real quick, a quick rundown. What was going through your thoughts when you made this one of Menard?
So I love the photo. You did a great job with the single source lighting, so you have great shadow structure. So I felt pretty confident. I kind of feel like if I can draw it, I can paint it. And I felt confident. This is the kind of source material that I'm used to drawing in charcoal. So I felt good about being able to, get the overall features, proportionally and in the right angles and stuff like that, and then create enough shadow structure to make it look like something. I was a little nervous about the facial hair because I'm still not good at painting facial hair, you know. But I loved it, and it was my first painting in this series that we did, and I wanted to do you first because we had already met, and I think that really helped encourage me to continue on to do more, and you know, to take a little more risk, which I did with like I was talking about. Gary's photograph is very uniformly lit. I was super nervous about that. But I felt comfortable doing it because of the connection I had with you already. So this was, I think, a great way to start. I think that if I had to do this over again, I would have shifted your head up a little bit more in the frame and they get a little more of your uniform in, because I was nervous about getting the texture of the uniform, but I think that the uniform actually came out pretty good.
Yeah.
And not all of them did. Like one of my regrets is not all the uniforms came out as good as I had hoped, but this one came out pretty good, and I think Paul's came out pretty good as well. So I wish maybe I had, you know, maybe just moved you up a little more, just so we could see a little more of that. But I was very happy with this. I think that it was a good way to get me started, because if this had gone really badly, that may have been the last one I did, you know. So we may not be having this conversation right now. So thankfully, I think this I was able to get a likeness. And we were able to talk about it, and you were really, I mean, effusive in your praise, which is not deserved, but I appreciated it. So it really encouraged me to keep going. So I'm glad we started with this.
Well, I think the thing I like you nailed the material. Like, it looks like you could touch the painting and feel the velvety type material that you know, the red velvety type material that this jacket, the Darmok jacket, is made of. And that was one thing when because I asked you, I was like, what uniform do you want Menard in? Because that's one thing, being a uniform guy, I have all of them, so I could have done any one. You were like, pick whichever one you want. And I was like, well, let me do this one. Because again, most people, when they take pictures, you know, they have the classic next gen uniform, or they have the classic TOS, or, you know, and I thought, well, I know who I'm asking to do these, and I know what they have available. I want to do something that's different. So when you see the painting, it stands out. You know, not because I want to be, you know, the sore thumb, but I want something that just in general, you don't see this every day. And I think the uniform, like, you really make it pop. You know, the Darmok jacket, I think, is a beautiful jacket / uniform. It looks very casual, but yet looks very Starfleet. And you really bring that out. You really make it pop. And you have enough of my features there where you look at this and you go, oh, that's Menard. The wonderful thing about doing fan films is, and especially now, when you're watching the film, you lose the fact that, oh, that's not Vance, that's Menard, and your painting captures that precisely. You look at this and it's not Vance in a Starfleet jacket, it's Menard, and that's one thing that I think your paintings do. They capture the character, they don't capture the actor. You capture enough of that personality of each one. And again, you don't capture Vance, you capture Menard. I think Eric, the character, if he were to look at this, he would be very honored by having this. I know me as the actor, I am, and I think he would be too. I think he would be very proud to look at this and go, this is a very awesome painting. So I speak on two parts. As Thank ridiculous you. As some people might think, I do. I think it pops. So. So that being said, let's look at Gary's. And here we go. Here, what were your thoughts on doing Gary's?
Again, I was just nervous about finding ways to create form, because if you looked at, I think I actually may have talked about this in my video about this photo, but if you look at the source photo and you squint, which is kind of how I look at how to create form, it looked like all one color, meaning all one level of lightness or darkness. So I needed to create, I either needed to paint very subtly, which I wasn't going to be able to do suddenly. Like, I think working quickly for me, I haven't developed that technical skill. So I needed to find ways to create that form so it looks three-dimensional, so it doesn't look like it's a flat, like, you know, Egyptian cave painting or something like that. And I was using hue to do that, like whether it's red or gray or whatever, to try to create that in the same value. So a lot of this is all the same value, but the hue varies enough to where it gives you a sense of sort of coming forward and out of the picture plane, which is kind of the goal. And I think the drawing is pretty accurate, which helps, right? If my drawing is not accurate, then none of that's going to matter. So I think the drawing is reasonably accurate. I think it looks like Gary, and I think that was the reason why, I was talking about before, if it's something that is going to keep me up at night, I won't stop, or I'll wipe it off and start again. I felt comfortable that this looked like Gary. If someone saw this and they knew Gary, I think they would recognize it as him. So
yeah. The one thing that I find about this, Brosseau is a lot like Gary. I would say it's not 100%. I would say, just like with Menard and me, it's about 95% there. I'd say it's the same thing here with Brosseau. He's a very fun character, very compassionate character. And I would say here you've captured the twinkle that not only Brosseau has, but I've seen Gary. Gary and I are pretty good friends, and I've seen the twinkle in Gary's. Anyone that knows Gary in person has seen that twinkle in his eye, especially when he talks about Star Trek, or he makes a joke and he's kind of waiting for you to get the punchline. Especially when you make him wait on him telling the punchline. He gets that twinkle in his eye. He's a very funny guy. And he's so clever, but you've captured that twinkle here, like he's waiting to tell you the punchline of a joke. And right here, it's almost like he's turning to Denson and he's waiting to tell a joke, waiting to tell that punchline. And you captured the essence of both Rousseau and of Gary. So I really love that. And I know you said that usually you like drawing in the shade, and this was a little bit outside your comfort zone, but to me, I feel like this is probably one of the best ones you've done, because of the fact that it is not in that comfort zone, and I love it so much. It's just it's a beautiful painting. It's a great painting. I love it.
Thank you. And that's what I was talking about before when we were discussing what I'll call the Royce portraits, because I think it's a cool name for them. That sense of what else is going on in this photograph, and I think there was, and I had to guess a little bit, but I really enjoyed that facet of this too. Yeah, thanks.
So next one we have up is Lobato. This is from the Raincross series. For those who haven't seen it, what was going through your mind with this one?
Again, I just love the expression on his face, and I was nervous about not capturing that. And I think his expression is even more pronounced than what I have here, but I was nervous about pushing it too much because I didn't want it to turn into like a caricature. But I really wanted to make sure I captured that smile. And again, I have no idea what he was thinking when he took the photograph, but I knew I wanted to capture that sense of this. And this is another one where I really like the uniform, even though it's a portion of his face. I think this uniform came out great. And so I felt really good about that. But again, the expression on his face is really, and it was also, the lighting in this source photo was perfect. So that was another, which helps me a lot. So whenever I get that great lighting, it makes it easier for me to do what I kind of know how to do without having to go too far out my comfort zone, And I got the pips. I left the pips off at first, and I don't know if I told you this, but I dropped this painting, and I had to fix it. I was like, oh shit, So I had to repair some of it, and that's when I noticed I forgot the pips, and I added the pips on.
Well, the thing I like about this painting is the Lobato character. Whenever I've written for him, I always try to have him be someone that is a very compassionate, but he always has a lot going on in his head, because he always has, he's trying to look at the bigger picture of what's going on, but he has his crew first and foremost going on, and that's the thing that I love that you've captured here is you can't quite see everything behind the eyes, and he's got a smile. So it's to me, there's a lot that says it's not with what you see, but you still capture the essence of the character. So to me, I feel like there's a lot of symbolism there with, I mean, it's not quite as pronounced, there's a lot there that's with what you do and don't see. So to me, I'm like, man, there's there's a lot of subtlety in this picture that I don't know if the artist picked up on. Like, damn, this is good. Because again, I know when I write the character, there's a little bit of mystery, but again, once you know how the character thinks, you know the character. And when I look at the painting, I'm like, damn, it's eerie how much you see in a face that someone interprets it something, you know, that may or may not have picked up on those things. And it's just eerie how much you have picked up on those things. So it's a great painting. I love it. I love it a lot.
Thanks. You know, and Lobato is one of these characters that's very principled, right? But like as you say, there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but there's something going on that you don't have the whole full picture of, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Yes, that's exact. Yes. So next one we have up is Grissom, one of my best friends, Frank Parker. And you had said you put in the headrest behind him, which is something I didn't realize till you said that. And now the first thing I look at is not Frank. It's always the headrest. Every time I look at it, I'm like, it's that damn headrest. So what was your thoughts, man?
So first of all, the angle is awesome because we're actually looking up at Frank, right? We're seeing the underside of his chin, the underside of his nose, which is an unusual pose. And I thought, well, if I just paint Frank that way, it's going to look like I'm looking down at him, unless I can explain it by having him lean back in a chair. And I think this was probably from a set where he was leaning back in a chair, but there wasn't a headrest.
Right.
And I thought, you know, I kind of felt like for me to get my head around it, I wanted to do some explaining, which is probably a mistake. Like explaining too much in a painting is probably a mistake anytime you do it. But I kind of wanted to experiment with that to give myself a little comfort because, you know, me out of my comfort zone, we've already discussed that, you know. And it doesn't look like the photograph. I mean, it looks like Frank. But at some point, like I know I'm never going to replicate the photograph exactly. So you have to make decisions about, you know, this is now a unique piece of work. It's going to look like my rendering of Frank. It's off. If you compare this to the photograph, it's off. But I think it looks like Frank. I think it captured the likeness. And I love the pose. I love that, first of all, the angle, which is unusual. So when you study drawing, and I talked about this in one of the videos, you know, you go through these different exercises that are construction oriented, and they'll tell you to draw the head tilted like this and tilted like that. And you think, well, am I ever going to use that? Well, guess what? I needed to use it here. So, and I love he had an expression that I kind of read as, you know, like he's getting ready for battle. Or there's something about this that is, I think, just kind of kick ass. And I wanted to try to capture that, and I wasn't sure if I was going to pull it off. And then that was one of the things that when you did your reveal, Frank called out. I was so happy that he got a sense that I captured that. So that was really satisfying.
Well, and that's one of the things. Like I don't know if you remember back in the mid '90s, early to mid. I think it was early '90s actually. They had these Star Trek collector cards, and most of them were paintings of like the Star Trek crew, Star Trek: The Next Generation crew, and that's what your paintings remind me of. Is like a lot of them took like pictures that we knew, but they reinterpreted them to, you know, be paintings. And that's what your paintings remind me of. Like you knew exactly where they were from because they were from famous Star Trek pictures, but they were just reinterpreted. And that's what your paintings remind me of. Like you don't want to do exactly the picture because why redo them as a painting? You know, so you have to give a little bit of leeway. And you and I think have touched base when you came on before in the chat. You can't do 100%. There's always room for that wiggle room for interpretation. And that people, when they say, oh, this isn't them, they messed up on the nose, or this isn't them, look at the ear, or this isn't them, the head's a little egg shaped. Screw it. You know what? People need more egg shaped heads, I always say. You know, stop being so literal with things and enjoy the interpretation.
Not that we're saying Frank has an egg shaped head.
Much love, Frank. That's why he's got the face he's got here. He knows we're talking shit on him, and he's like, "You son of a bitch."
Frank was very gracious when we met, by the way. It was really nice to meet Frank.
Yeah, Frank is a good guy. He's a good guy. So next we have Jose Cepeda, or Joe Cepeda. Which it's funny because all these years I've been calling him Jose Cepeda, so it's going to take me a while to break that. And then I was like, "Do you prefer Jose or Joe?" He's like, "Oh, I go by Joe." I'm like, "Why have you never corrected me?" He's like, "Oh, it's never a big deal." I'm like, "Thanks, man." So Joe Cepeda, of yeah, of the USS Crusader. So what was going through your head when you did this one?
So first of all, you sent me some links to some of Joe's movies, and Captain Ramsey's is wild. I mean, I loved it. It was great. He's over the top.
It
So when
is.
I saw this photograph, and the reference photo had a very intense blue background,
Yes.
and some shadow on it, and the lighting was very good. And I wanted to tone that way down because I couldn't feel like I was worried if I tried to put that real intense blue back there, it would compete with the thing, and I wouldn't do a good job. So I know, again, this is another one where the drawing is not perfect. And I always feel bad because technically I want to be a better artist, but I think it looks like Joe. If someone saw this and knew Joe,
Oh yeah.
I think it looks like Joe. But what's really awesome about this, as like an art nerd, is um, there's different colors in the shadows. And one of the things a lot of artists talk about are shadows and color temperature. And I think this happens because a lot of landscape artists have sort of, I don't want to say formula because it's kind of a negative term, but when you paint in landscapes, when you see shadows, the only thing we ever see in shadow is light. Because if there was no light, it would be so dark we couldn't see anything. We don't have paint black enough to paint that dark even. That's how dark shadows are. So if we see anything in shadows, because some light's reflected in there from somewhere. Well, when you're outside, that light is a big blue sky. So those shadows are all what we call cool, even though that's not a right term because blue is hotter than red in temperature in terms of like, heat waves and stuff. But we call it cool. So people say, shadows are cool. But shadows are not always cool. And the reason they're cool or warm from a color temperature standpoint has everything to do with, the color of the thing. If the thing is blue, it's probably going to look blue even in shadow. But it's the color of the light that's reflected into there. And because there was this blue wall behind him, there was cool color reflected into into the shadows on the side. But his shirt is a sort of orangey yellow, and that's reflecting up. So the shadows under his chin are warm. And I thought, this is such a great way to, express color temperature and shadow in a way that, is backed up by proof. Like, here's the photo. You know what I mean? This is reality. So color temperature is an interesting thing, and a lot of people who are like art nerds like me can geek out about it, stuff like that. But so that was one of the things I really thought was cool about this. And again, the lighting was really good with this. The expression was good. His eyes are like steely, So I want to try. Hey, Royce.
Say hi, Royce.
Hi.
Hello.
I just cleaned up all my experiment mess with working as a team with my mom.
That's awesome, buddy. Did you have fun? Yeah. What did you do as the experiment?
Well, I told my mom after when we were done with the experiment, that we were going to find a YouTube game on my Mr. Red.
Wow.
I see it every time on my commercials, and I found it for you.
For me?
Yeah, so we're going to look for it.
Well,
yeah, so we can download it for you to play.
Yeah, because Mom won't let me watch YouTube and find it to play the game, but that it's all real.
Well, give me about 10 minutes and I'll be out there to help you play it, okay? Well, you have a good time helping him find it.
That was awesome.
Bless his heart. So, I'm sorry, didn't mean to break your train of thought, my friend. Train of thought, my friend.
All good, all good. Worth it.
So the thing I like about this painting is the shadows to me. Like you obviously have a lot of thought into that. On the drawings that I did charcoal wise, like I would always just go around the head and shade it in because I don't know any of that stuff. And so you are smarter in that regard than I am. But to me, when I look at this, you're right. Watching Joe's film, not Jose. Watching Joe's films, they are they are out there, and I love it because it
Me
reminds me a
too.
lot. At first, when I watched it, I was like, "What am I watching? I don't get it." But now I kind of look at it of kind of like Star Trek the animated series, where it's like you don't have to take it super serious. You can just enjoy it for what it is. And once you think of it like that, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I can." And it's great fun. And that's the one thing that I love about Joe is he knows it. He has fun. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. Um, and I love it because it counterbalances, like when you watch a Menard film, there's a good chance you're gonna be like, oh man, I'm so depressed. you know,
Heavy
and
stuff, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's depressing, and I say that having, I write the shit, I know it is, but when I watch his stuff, I never leave depressed. I always watch it going, hell yeah, you
Yeah.
go, Captain Ramses, and you can tell everybody there just has so much fun, you know. So I think, looking at the background, um, it kind of is symbolic of like what's going on back there, and you don't know, but like Captain Ramses is like, I got it. It's all good.
Yeah.
I'll go deal with it. You know.
Not
Um,
bothered by it. My headphones are about to lose battery, I think, but we'll still be able to talk, I hope.
okay. Okay. We'll get through the next two, and then we'll be good. So you've got Admiral Lagua right here from. Are you good? Can you hear me, man?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good to go, man. You're good.
Cool.
So we got Admiral Lagua right here, which is David Chang. Um, what were your thoughts on when you painted him?
I was geeking out about this because of the face pistol. I don't know what era weapon that is either. I don't know if it is the right one for the uniform. Didn't matter to me.
I, I
I
think
thought
it's. I think
the uniform had this unique stripe as well with some insignia on the side. I was geeking out about that. I thought it was another great photo. The lighting was cool on this. I mean, cool meaning awesome. Um, so I was excited to paint this. Yeah.
I think the thing that I like you, I seeing the face pistol. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Star Trek 3 era. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think it's the Star Trek 6 because I have that one and I don't think that's it. I think it's Star Trek 3. But it could be Star Trek 6, but I don't think so. I think it's Star Trek. I think it's Star Trek 3 era. But this is such a beautiful action moment. Like this, it reminds me of like Star Trek 6 when they're about to go kick some Klingon ass at Kittimer. He's looking, he's like, all right, you're going to try to take over this Kittimer Accords. I'm a stomp you in the ground, guy. I gotcha. Like, he looks like he's about to go join Kirk and just stomp a Klingon. Um, and I love that because, again, if you've watched any of um, Admiral Nagura's films, from Star Trek Fan International. Um, you've seen Admiral Nagura fence, you've seen him sword fight, you've seen him. He's been behind the desk. Like, I mean, David's done it all. I mean, all my fat ass has done is sit behind a computer desk and talk on a comm box. David's actually done some physical work. I mean, I, I if I tried to do that shit, I'd be in the next commercial of I fallen and I can't get up. Um, he's actually done the work, and this picture shows that because he's got the cool weapon, and he's like, all right, I'm ready to go do this, and that's why he's an admiral and I'm still a captain. So so
Sadly, I downgraded him to captain inadvertently in my post because I didn't realize he was an admiral.
well, that's all right. After he starts shooting some Klingons, they'll boost him back up, so it's all good.
That's
It's
right.
it's all good. So here's the thing I did that showed um all of us together, at least so far, because I know we're going to be doing. I'm going to try to get Captain Mickle from the 11th Hour, which is the captain that replaces Captain Menard after he dies. And then I believe we're going to try to get Captain Mason from Avalon, and uh, I think they were trying to get Admiral Kirk or Captain Kirk from. I think that's what David said. which is Mike Longo, which, we can make all of these happen easily. So that being said, I would say expect some more, at least two or three more paintings. But as for right now, this is the captain's table right now. And I know for me, I am going to be shooting these three in a fan film that's coming up. So they will these six right now as it stands, because in my mind, this is wave one of the pictures. Because if we're going to be adding more to it, I'm like, that's going to be wave two, because I know there's going to be more that they've seen these. Those will probably be in some fan films too. Just because it's like I believe in giving back to those who give. Because people send me props. We put them in a fan film. People do paintings like this. Oh, let's put this in a film. This is cool. So that being said, we've been here hour and 15 minutes. My kid has some things he's tortured my wife with. Is there anything? Yeah, there you go. Is there anything you have left to say before we end the Pizza Roll Diaries today, man?
I just want to say thanks, because honestly, without your help, I couldn't have pulled any of this off. So you were so important to me for helping get through, not just, contacting the people and getting the source photos, but, the kind of feedback that really helped get me to continue to do another one and another one. So just very grateful to you for all your help and our friendship that's now developing because we've met through this, and looking forward to doing more stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, real quick before we go, we've got a couple more comments in the chat. Give me 1 second. William Wells says, I love Buck Rogers. I met him and Aaron Gray back in 2004. Oh, that's awesome, Bill. Donna Parker was talking about left field. She says, Frank does it. I don't know what that's in reference to, but that's why it sucks to have me doing the chat stuff. I always get back an hour later. I'm like, oh, there's a comment. Forgive me, Donna. I suck. William Wells says, you should add his hand holding his beard comb, Richard. Yeah, no. I have more hair down here than I do up here. So, he painted the beard majestic. It's good. It's good. Dionysus Larson says, I love the beard. I like the squared off look, the miniature John Brown. I love the light look, glint in his right eye. Bless your heart. Dionysus says, is that the new uniform style for Star Trek New Worlds? No, the new uniform that you saw for Lobato, I assume the new uniform you're talking about that was on Lobato was in Star Trek Picard. It was in the flashback stuff. And then every other one that was yellow was original series style. Donna Parker says, I love how you caught the eyes. I assume you're talking about Gary Davis or Frank. Both of them had great looking eyes. And Gary Davis is an attractive man, the way he was painted there. He was, if he wasn't with Tracy, I'd pick him up. So, Dionysus Larson, well done. And then Donna says the song. Oh, right on. You're absolutely right, Donna. Right on. So, all right, those are all the comments. Richard, I know you said you got to get back to work. I got a kid who's, I can hear him going, the song. Okay, so I'm going to get to him. So, all right, that being said, everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us today. Richard, thank you for joining us. We will get you more captains to get to at your own leisure for Wave 2. So that being said, everybody, thank you for joining us. Everyone watching on the rewind, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will get Richard's Instagram. We'll put that in the link to the description. So everyone in the chat, in about 5 minutes, everyone watching the rewind, just click down in the description and then jump over there, support him. Everyone be genuine, be safe, and keep on geeking on, guys.